Should the Niners draft a quarterback, given that Brock Purdy's arm, his throwing arm, is injured again twice? Do they hedge?
First of all, I think the Niners should draft a quarterback, even if Brock Purdy's arm is perfect, because they're now at a spot where the only way they're going to be able to, get on the level. I mean, look at the Niners. They don't have a lot of big time players in their prime. They don't have tons of young talent. They need a reset. But what they really need is they need an injection of significant talent. They've lost out on all those Trey Lance picks. They lost out on a lot of high picks. So, yeah, I would definitely take a shot at a quarterback every draft going forward. Why? Because if you can hit on one, then now you've got an asset that it could be traded for, multiple picks and maybe multiple ones. And to me, that's how you build. So, somebody in the Niner organization had a pretty good eye for Brock Purdy. That maybe, see what that guy says.
It wasn't Kyle.
Yeah, but whoever it was, if they like Carson Beck, and all of a sudden you're sitting there in the third round and the Georgia quarterback staring you in the eye, you might want to consider drafting him. One, because you're not 100% sure about the long term for Brock. Two, if Carson Beck became a great looking prospect, you could trade him for 2 1s and 2 2s, and suddenly you're back in biz and you're right there with Detroit and Kansas City and all the best teams. So they're not there now. So I think the quarterback selection could be the shortcut route, but you got to do it well. You got to have a good eye for it. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'm glad you said round 3. I don't know if it's Carson Beck. I don't watch college football. I'm like Kyle Shanahan. I'll watch some tape when the season's over. But round 3 is not too early for the Niners to take a quarterback. Round 2 is not too early for the Niners to take a quarterback if there's one that they really, really like. I don't think round 1 is necessary. I'm not saying like get rid of Brock or trade Brock, but I don't think they should give him a 5-year contract extension this offseason. If they want to offer him a 3-year extension or a 2-year extension, great. But that's still, you got to like have a plan B in case something does happen with his elbow or his shoulder again and he's damaged goods, because he doesn't have arm strength to spare. We were talking about him maybe gaining more of it. And as the season went on, it seemed like he got a little tired. He would stop throwing down the field. And those are things like the fact that he stopped throwing down the field before he hurt his shoulder is concerning to me. Like, why was that? Was it your elbow? What was it? So just the fact that those questions exist make me feel like, yeah, it's an important position. Kyle Shanahan can't keep his quarterbacks healthy for that long of a time. So yeah, bring in another quarterback, draft one.
And Brock, to me, has regressed a little bit this year as far as he's not really letting it rip the way he has. And I'm not sure why. Is it that, Ayuk is his, most of the time when he was letting it rip down the field last year, most of the time he was throwing it to Ayuk. So you wonder, without Ayuk, does he have a downfield receiver that he trusts? Does he have a receiver that can even get downfield? On this team, is Ronnie Bell getting downfield? I mean, who's getting downfield among these receivers?
If you're not throwing the Kittle or Jennings this year, it's probably not going to work out that well. And those guys one's a tight end and one's like a glorified tight end.
Right. Go to those guys in the red zone the rest of the year. I mean, you get to the red zone, throw it to Kittle, throw it to Jennings. You want to mix in a throw to Ricky, fine. But Kittle is being shockingly underutilized this year. You don't have Ayuk. Debo looks washed. JJ's relatively slow. McCaffrey's been out all year, and you're still not going to Kittle on a regular basis, and you're still using him as a glorified offensive lineman to block. I mean, come on, find another blocker and get that guy in the pattern. And you go to some 12 personnel around the goal line, and you get a good blocker and put Kittle in the end zone and throw him the ball. Let's see if he can do it.
If Andy Reid had George Kittle, Jawan Jennings, Jordan Mason, Brock Purdy, he'd do really well. That's how I feel. I don't feel sympathetic for Kyle for having injuries. Like, you got a lot of talent. You're supposed to be creative. Other creative coaches, they wouldn't have the number 1 offense with this, but they would be scoring at a much higher clip than the Niners if Andy Reid were the coach, if Ben Johnson were the coach.
Ben Johnson has a lot. I mean, first of all, I'd love to have Ben Johnson's weapons, but Ben Johnson also is a very young guy, but he's also got some very creative red zone play calls. He creates space in the red zone better than any other coach in the league, based on what I've seen. It's not a scientific study or anything, but based on what I've seen this year, Ben Johnson's play calls in the red zone are spectacular, and he always creates lots of room. Now, is that the speed of his weapons? It could be. Is it the greatness of his line? It could be. But they're having tons of success, and it's a copycat league. Niners ought to try to copy as much of it as they can.
Well, last thing I want to say on this topic, if they do draft a quarterback, he needs to be mobile.
Yes.
I think that's if you're going to have a quarterback who's not mobile, that's fine. But then you need to have a great offensive line. And the Niners are never going to have a great offensive line. They don't try to have a great offensive line. So fine. The Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer, Brandon Allens of the world aren't really good fits for this team. And I think we saw it. Brandon Allen did a nice job, but when the pocket collapsed around him, which happens on this team, he has no instincts. He has no quickness. He has no feel. Brock Purdy's ability to make the first guy miss and then extend the play is the most valuable thing the Niners offense has this right now. So I think that they can't, Kyle doesn't think that's important, but the organization has to understand it's extremely important.
Yeah. Mobility. I mean, I'll say it right now. Mobility at quarterback is not just like, ooh, that's a nice little wrinkle. That is a must. You have to have mobility. The two quarterbacks I would tell everybody to go watch. One is Cam Ward, who was just here in Berkeley a few weeks ago with the Hurricanes, an amazing player. And the other is the freshman quarterback from Texas A&M. And I forget his name, but he's really good. And he's fast. He's athletic. He's like 6'2", 6'3", kind of, very much like Lamar, but even with a better pocket passer. So, I mean, those are the two young quarterbacks I really like.
What do you think of Shedeur Sanders?
He's super athletic, and he's probably going to go top 5 in the draft. He's big. He's 6'2", 220. He completes a high percentage this year. I mean, he's completing 74%. He's got 30 touchdowns, 7 picks. Yeah, I like him. I mean, he's going to have some transition time. I don't think he's going to step in and dominate, but I also think that they have no shot at him because he's going to go in the top 5.
They could tank for him.
Yeah, they could tank for him, but I mean, even if they tanked, I think they're probably getting to about 6, 7. Okay. They're not going to get, where he's going to go like 1, 2, 3 probably.
Fair enough.